What's going on, everyone? Back with another episode of Stuff and Things. Today we're working a little bit more on my Mark 5 Supra. Now, if you guys have been following this build from the beginning, it's kind of like what I would consider a stock plus kind of build. Under here I've done a few little bolt-on accessories. I of course did the Armaspeed intake and their strut tower supports. The engine bay is still pretty clean in here. I have not detailed this yet. And then down here from the turbo back, I have a 5-inch catless downpipe and then a full titanium exhaust. So the car has a stage 2 tune on it. Haven't gotten it on a dyno yet, but I would guess that at my elevation up here in Colorado, it's probably around 450-ish, maybe a little more, maybe a little less, but we will find out someday. Now, the main thing we're talking about today is some more parts from Armaspeed. You guys saw the cold air intake, those strut tower supports, as well as these wind deflectors here, and even the rear canards right back here. So now we're moving on to this brand new Aero kit that Armaspeed just released, and we are going to be adding a lot more carbon to the car today. I think I'm going to start this install up at the front splitter here. We have some for the side skirts, and then on the rear diffuser, this is going to be kind of pieced together in 4 parts for the center and for the outer wings. Now, the cool part about this entire kit right here is that I will not need to cut, I don't need to drill. I'm basically going to be retaining the car kind of in its factory state, and all of these parts here are actually going to be held on with kind of like a 3M adhesive. So Armaspeed includes this extremely tacky 3M double stick tape, and this stuff is going to basically just piece right on top of the existing kit. Adds protection, adds style, doesn't add a ton of weight because this stuff is all complete carbon. And then some pieces, like the front here, it's actually kind of impregnated with foam. So it adds a lot of rigidity to these pieces, and it's really just gonna be super unique compared to some of the other kits out on the market right now. This kit is brand new, like I mentioned, so this may be your first time seeing it. It's definitely my first time seeing it in person. So before we get into this install, let's take a look at the car in its stock form, and then we will jump right into the front lip. Alright, so now we're jumping right into this front splitter here. It's obviously going to be in 2 different pieces, and I can already tell that it's kind of like vacuum molded to fit on here pretty perfectly. Now, since it's in 2 pieces, I split this into 2 different rolls, and when I hold the piece up just to kind of mock the fit, I can already tell that I'm gonna wanna add some tape up here, down below, and then at all of the index points. So we got 1 back here in the middle, 1 out on the end, and then if I have any left over, I might stick a little piece underneath. There's really not much to this install. It's just gonna be a lot of the same process, kind of test fitting, cutting these pieces, sticking the pieces. Until we get back to the rear, for the rear diffuser, I may have to do something a little bit extra because of my current setup, and we'll talk about that when I get to it. All right, so here's where I'm putting this tape. I got 1 towards the back, 2, 3, 4, and then 1 on the inside. Right about there. And if I want to, I could add more because I have a bunch of this stuff in the garage, but for now I'm just gonna stick with this and see how the placement looks. Mods. 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 All right, moving back to the side skirts now. These are like really low profile, and to the untrained eye, you probably wouldn't even notice them, but it's just going to sit on the stock plastics right like this. I found that after doing the passenger side on the front that it's best to put this tape on the flattest surfaces possible. On the side here, this lip kind of wraps underneath, so you have to cut them really small to fit in there. But when you're doing the front, it's best to keep them on the flats of the stock plastic. And this one should be very easy to install. I just gotta make sure it's all straight. Ooh. All right, before I stick this, I'm already noticing that the tape, although it's transparent, does hang out a little bit. So I'm gonna cut these pieces even smaller, that way they stick only underneath the bumper. All right, now I've recut that. I have way more coverage on the bottom here, and now the tape will not show. So, sweet. All right, moving on to this rear section. I think this is going to be my favorite just because it adds, I guess, one of the most extreme looks to the whole kit. This is also going to be very easy to slide into place, so I just have to, again, place the tape on the flats of the inside here, and this thing will be stuck on in just a second. I will have that extra step once we move to the center of the diffuser, but for now, this one should be straightforward. That should be perfect. I'm trying to keep the VHB, the very high bondage tape, off of my wrap as much as possible, and this stuff is so strong that once this stuff sets up and adheres nicely to the stock plastic, it ain't going nowhere. All right, moving on to the final piece here, the diffuser. This is where I had a little bit of an extra step. I wanted to remove my exhaust tips here because these things are pretty massive and the clearance is already pretty tight on here. Luckily, the way that this piece is cut, it's going to be about the same. I don't think it will touch, but I removed them. That way I had an easier time installing this. And then once this is set in place, I have to be very particular about how this one goes on. Then I should be able to reset the exhaust tips all the way back down. So instead of butting this all the way up against the back of the diffuser on this side, I'm going to leave a little bit of a gap and kind of follow this line here. And we're gonna have maybe a centimeter of room up until the reflectors here, which mine are carbon, but this is a reflector. Also, this has a cutout for the stock diffuser there, so it's gonna kind of fit right into that slot. Raise this side a little bit. All right. Woo, that is tight. I could probably hang my exhaust a little bit higher, which would clean that up. But for now, hey, it is the next day now. I ran out of light after filming the install yesterday, and I must say it went very smooth. It was kind of relaxing, honestly, because the install is so simple on this. Like I mentioned, no cutting, no drilling or anything like that. It's just kind of fitting the pieces, finding the right spot for the adhesive, and the completed project now out here in the daylight looks amazing. So I started with the car completely clean. I then surface prepped everything with some alcohol. I got everything stuck on and then allowed the car to sit overnight. That way the adhesive can actually bond to the stock plastic pieces that are on here, and let's take a look at it now. Starting up front here, I am absolutely loving these front additions to the splitters here. Overall, I think the front end of the Supra, it looks really nice, but the front end compared to the back is just a little bit boring. The whole car is very round. I mean, it has curves everywhere you look at it, so I'm really liking this new addition. You can see here it kind of adds an extra flare, an extra point out the side. It just gives the front end a little bit more lines overall instead of just having a nicely curved lip. The aero on the front of this now looks absolutely amazing. You'll notice in the middle here where the split between the two pieces happen, I was a little skeptical about it on how it would look. I thought it wouldn't look very seamless, but I think it actually looks great. All of these carbon accents from Armaspeed, coupled with my orange accents and the actual wrap, it really sets everything off. It's subtle, but once you actually take note of it, it really adds a lot more aggressive feeling to the car. And you'll notice that the Armaspeed logo is orange, which is almost a perfect match to my vinyl wrap that I have on here already. So Absolutely loving those. It almost makes the car look a little bit lower up front too. The car is lowered on some HKS touring springs, but it's not low enough to a point where I'm gonna be scraping these things up. So protecting the front lip, adding a lot of style and some better aero at the same time. Now, speaking of better aerodynamics, I think this side piece here on the side skirt is probably going to actually be doing the most. This car is obviously designed with a lot of aerodynamics taken into consideration, but with a little bit of the changes like lowering the car and also running wheel spacers. I think I'm running 12 or 13 up front and then 15 mil in the rear if I remember correctly. So the tire pokes out just a little bit more than stock. So with the addition of the carbon side on here, it's actually directing the air out further around the tire. Not that I would really notice a difference, but once you get into some track scenarios, maybe even some autocross, that should help direct the air out around the tire rather than just kind of sticking right into it. Again, this is really only a half piece here, but it's very unique. It's unlike anything else that I've seen on the market right now. Rather than replacing the entire plastic on the side, it's just a nice addition on there and it makes the car pop a whole lot without being too crazy either. Now coming around to the back, these are probably some of my favorite accents here and also the most difficult to get lined up completely properly. The sides on here add a really aggressive look to the rear end. You will notice that there's almost like a shark fin coming out the side there. It kind of looks like a vent, but it's really just an extra piece of carbon with that foam on the interior. Oh, I'm already getting this stuff dirty. So that again, of course, is going to direct air a little bit more smoothly around the back end of the car. And then last but not least, coming to this rear diffuser here. The stock diffuser, it looks okay. There are like the little ridges right here on each side, but previously you did not have any extra aero down below. So this kind of cleans up the back end, but at the same time makes it look a little bit more aggressive. It's hiding my exhaust a little bit more, which I honestly don't mind. And the fitment on here with these exhaust tips is super tight. I think I might opt for some shorter hangers in the future just so I can raise the whole exhaust system just a little bit. But now we have these vents running across the bottom, again making the car look a little bit lower in the rear and a little bit more uniform. You can see where this piece kind of comes across and almost connects to the outside there. You couple that with the rear canards from Armaspeed as well. Also my carbon spoiler on there, and this thing is looking absolutely insane. I always thought the Supra in a stock form kind of reminded me of a Batmobile, and with all this aero on here now, especially with my wrap design, it's really giving me Batmobile vibes. Kind of have the wings coming out the front there, running down the side, and then the crazy setup in the rear. Project, I would say, is a success, and now it's time to go drive the car. So that's going to be all for this quick video of the new Armaspeed Aero kit for the Mark 5 Supra. If you guys have any questions, let me know in the comments down below. I'll try to answer anything as best as possible. And if you want to check out this kit, you can get individual pieces. You can also opt for the full kit with a duckbill spoiler as well. I'm going to leave a link to their website down below where you can pick it up and kind of spec out your car however you see fit. You can also find links to the Armaspeed intake, which I installed a little while ago, the rear canards, the strut tower supports, and even the air deflectors on the side. That's probably one of the first mods you should ever do to a Mark 5 Supra because of the wind buffeting. But that's enough talking for now. I've got a review on this car coming up for you guys very soon. Next week will actually be 1 year of ownership of this car so far, and I've never given it like a proper driving review talking about everything in its entirety. So I'm gonna bring you guys that as soon as possible. I think that's it. If you're new to the channel, consider clicking subscribe and make new videos every single week. As always, thank you for watching. I'll talk to you in the next one.